Welcome to the July edition of North St. Paul Notes. I'm your host, Paul Anderson. Coming up in the next half hour, we're going to learn about the Silver Lake Improvement Association. Stay tuned, North St. Paul Notes is straight ahead. Hello and welcome to the July edition of North St. Paul Notes. We hope this show will keep you up to date on the news and events that are of interest to the residents of North St. Paul. Today we're going to learn about the Silver Lake Improvement Association, or SLIA. SLIA is a nonprofit organization with the purpose of promoting programs that enhance the water quality, recreational use, and the natural beauty of Silver Lake in North St. Paul, Oakdale, and Maplewood. Our guests today are the president of SLIA, Rick Gelbman, and treasurer, Joyce Germscheid. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Good to have you on, and I think it's time for us to have some publicity about the Lake Association. So,
Definitely agree.
yeah.
It's an important part of the city.
Well, I guess I wanted to just give a little bit of information, but I came upon this quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said at one time, and I saw this in a magazine, and I thought, well, this might be appropriate. What is a weed? The answer is a plant whose virtues have not yet been discovered. So I think it would make sense. That would make sense to both of you.
You bet.
Anyway, the first Lake Association was established in 1956. And I remember that because that's the year that I was lifeguard at the beach. And I had to keep people out right after they had sprayed the lake for weed growth. And of course, weed growth, we've seen that happen over and over in the lake, and it has been a problem for the current homeowners and users of the lake. So they use different means. At one time they were spraying, but then another time they were using those cutters, the weed cutters that I believe cut down maybe 4 feet of the top part of the weed and then drop the seeds all over the lake. And I know they're still using that in some places, but it didn't seem, and part of the problem with that is all of the cuttings they had to take out of the lake, so it was a massive job to take care of that kind of problem. I know they piled them up in Joy Park, and it formed a hill up there. So anyway, and then in 2002, I think that was the date anyway, some of the records that I had said that
For the new organization?
the first or the next reorganization happened or started about that time.
2005.
2005,
Yeah.
but something
May.
had started in 2002 also. I
Oh.
had that in some of the paperwork that I saw.
Okay.
And
I'm not aware
so
of
I guess 2005 was when the active weed concern came up, and I still remember when, and you probably remember too, when during the ice cream social that the Historical Society sponsored, why the Bald Eagle Water Ski Club came to do their water ski show, and that was a big attraction, of course. Mm-hmm. But one of those years, maybe it was 2005, they could not get through the weeds. They would bog down. They would the props would get filled with weeds, and so they had a terrible time. And so it was after that point where the idea of treating the whole lake came up, and that happened. I know it was 2007 for sure when they treated the whole lake. Does that
I believe
coincide with
2007 and 2008.
2008 also?
Yeah,
2 years they did.
I think so. Yeah.
And then what happened?
Boy, we had a real drop in all of the plant life in the lake.
Even the
Yeah,
native
the native
plants.
plants got wiped out, and it was very nice for a couple of years.
Right.
But then the invasive plants outcompeted the native plants in reviving, and so then we had a lot more in the way of invasive plants.
Right.
And I think as you were talking along, I was hearing you talk about the different processes that we've used over the years, and we've got kind of a changing notion of what ought to be done,
right.
Over the years. And what the goal is, because some of the goal is to make it good for recreational activities like skiing and things
right.
like that, but it's also good to have a good environment for fish to be able to propagate, because there's a lot of people that use the lake for fishing.
Right.
So there's a balance that we're trying to achieve.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess we've all experienced the different stages that we went
Yes.
through, and
Definitely.
it's been a problem, and it still is a
Yeah.
problem. We
Yeah.
think that we're approaching some solutions, but
Yeah.
maybe Joyce, you could talk a little bit about, you were out inspecting with our contractor.
Right, right. We contract our offshore and our shoreline treatment areas with Lake Improvement Consulting. And I did go out on the boat, I think it was in early June, to check for any evidence of the curly leaf pond water, which is one of the 2 invasives that we get a permit for from the DNR to treat. And we saw nothing out there. I think he did one little sampling somewhere in the lake, and there was maybe just a little bit of evidence, but not enough. So we pretty much knew that it was getting too late to treat the curly leaf anyway, because that's dependent on the water temperature. So we just decided to let that permit go this year, because why treat when there's nothing there?
Right.
And so then they just recently have gone out now, and I've gone out myself to look for the Eurasian milfoil, and I wasn't seeing any, especially in the areas that we've treated in the past. So they followed up behind me then, and they found that also. So we're not even sure we'll have anything to treat this year, although the milfoil can come up anytime, but we have a permit right now open for that treatment, but we may not need to use it, which is really fortunate, because in the past, years that I've been on the board, we've usually treated for both the curly leaf and the Eurasian milfoil,
Right.
and that costs money to do this.
Lots of money.
So me being the treasurer, our source of income as a nonprofit has mainly been our membership fee, and people that are members of the Silver Lake Improvement Association are not only homeowners who choose to, but they can also be people out in our community who live around the lake. In fact, Mayor Keene is a member, Candy Peterson, who's on the council and such. So we're really fortunate to have people that don't live on the lake but see the importance of the lake to our community also become members. So that has really helped us be able to pay for that offshore treatment of the lake. And then we also have recently had to do a fundraiser. We did a wine tasting last fall to raise money as well to pay for the treatment. And in the past, we never had to do a whole lot of fundraising because the DNR had been contributing to invasive treatment of lakes in Minnesota.
And that changed.
And that changed 2 years ago, yeah. It dropped substantially 3 years ago, but then after that year, there was no more money from the DNR to be had. So what money we had stockpiled, we used up. And so part of the effort to get my bank account or our bank account back up was the fundraiser, because we didn't want to increase the membership cost. We didn't feel that was right to do. And then we're also thinking about this year being a little more creative with maybe a business membership. But we also reached out to the cities of North St. Paul, Oakdale, Maplewood, who all have property on Silver Lake besides the homeowners. North St. Paul, of course, has Silver Lake Beach and the tennis area on the south end. Maplewood has the north end of Joy Park and the boat access, and there's a fishing pier. And then Oakdale has that little sliver along Century Avenue.
Right.
And then the rest is made up of the homes. So.
And in those areas, that's where you know, many people from around the community, Oakdale, North St. Paul, and Maplewood, are using the lake. So if you walk around the lake, you know, you'll see fishers out there, you know, catching fish. About 2 weeks ago, I saw somebody caught a bass this big, you know, right over in kind of North St. Paul Park area. Yeah, but he had a big smile on his face. He was pretty happy with that
I'm sure.
fish.
I'm sure.
You know, so you know, there's a variety of people that are using it for various purposes, and you know, it's kind of picking up a little bit on so much you were saying in terms of variability of our treatment from year to year. You know, we're really putting a lot of effort into it, as Joyce was describing. We're looking at what the conditions are out in the lake to see, you know, where the invasives are coming up and where it's doing pretty well without us doing any interference. And so we're very selective. We treat about 15% of the lake annually. We can treat up to that much. And so we are pretty careful to find the areas where the concentrations of invasive plants are, and just treat those areas. That does, you know, that both knocks down the invasives, but it also keeps the native plants from deteriorating in terms of you know, being affected by the treatment and so on.
Well, the DNR plays some role in this, even though they're not contributing. They are checking up on what the conditions are.
Yes, that's a big part of the permitting process. So
Sure.
we'll make a recommendation to the DNR, and they either come out and look at the lake, or they'll, you know, look at the information that we provide to them, and then I'll, you know, basically negotiate the areas that we'll be treating.
If I remember right, the reason why the whole lake treatment ended was because the DNR was alarmed about the natives diminishing, and so they were the ones who said, well, we couldn't do that anymore because of the suffering.
Yeah, they changed the process.
Yeah. So the idea, Joyce, I guess, is that we are welcoming anyone who wishes to contribute and
Absolutely.
would like to join us, are welcome to do so.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
trying to encourage others, not just people on the lake.
Because
in
many
fact,
people benefit from it.
Right.
Sure, and in fact, the lake is probably used more by people outside. I mean, especially the fishermen.
Right. Right. Good point.
So I think it's to everyone's benefit.
Yeah, we're at twice the utilization for fishing and other recreational activities as the metro area wide average is. That's according to DNR.
Right.
So very, you know, heavily used lake. It's an urban lake and very convenient for people to use.
Sure. I guess the association goal hasn't really changed from the beginning. And some of the same ideas were put forth, but maybe some things have been changed. Can you think of any ways that changes have taken place that might have affected how the association looks at the lake and how they deal with problems that come up?
Well, I think that over the years, you know, it has gone from, you know, looking at lake treatment types of activities and how can we make that part of things work, to also considering a little more broadly circumstances like water levels.
Right.
So water level is an issue. You know, high water levels are an issue for many residents on the lake.
And there's never an agreement, I guess, because depending on where you live, you might experience problems with water level, but
Right.
Yeah.
in some
others
cases,
don't.
people aren't looking at the shoreline and checking to see how much has disappeared because of high water level.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
Erosion.
they'd
When,
like-
and that erosion causes, you know, a lot more sediment in the lake.
right.
You know, just the waves washing up on shore, and that happens pretty much all the way around the lake, of course. And that additional nutrient then kind of feeds the algae.
Right.
So we, you know, it's all kind of interconnected, and we get this high water levels that cause the erosion, that cause more, you know, algae conditions, and so it's a real tricky balancing act
Right.
in terms of trying to figure out what's a appropriate kind of thing to treat. You know, how you want to address some of those issues.
Sure.
Um,
But
So-
there are some other issues that we deal with too. Talking about the high water level, there are some restrictions that come on with high water.
We've got a voluntary high water level at which, I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact elevation, at which we'll post a sign at the access in Joy Park and send out a notice to all of our membership, all of our friends of Silver Lake, and let them know that we're asking people to use their boats, but keep the speed down and, you know, kind of
And no wake.
practice,
Right.
you know, stay out in the middle of the lake and
Right.
minimize the amount of wake, so that we don't erode the shorelines any more than
Right.
you know, than we have to.
So
Yeah.
that's one more example of what the association is trying to do.
And things, if people bring boats into the lake, one thing that they can really do is to be sure that they're careful about making sure that they're not contaminating the lake with water from other lakes, because that's probably the way the milfoil spread.
Right.
I mean, we've noticed that the curly leaf pondweed, you know, we noticed that there was a concentration of it around the access point. So we suspect that somebody coming in with a boat had some curly leaf in their boat, and it got into the lake and spread.
It can be on
So
the boat.
we need to be real careful.
Sure.
Mhm.
Can be
And
on the boat or on the trailer.
can be on the
Right.
boat. And so
More-
cleaning your boat or keeping it out of the water for a couple of weeks before you bring it into another lake, you know, those are important things to do. And there's a lot more invasives that, knock on wood,
Yeah, right.
that we don't want getting
Sure.
into our
Into the
lake,
lake,
because that would just add to the problem.
Yep.
Right. I'm thinking of the shell fish.
Oh, zebra
Zebra
mussels.
mussel.
Yeah,
Yes.
so far
Yeah.
we
We're clear. so far.
And the lake is being monitored for that.
Mm-hmm.
But if we find it, then, you know, it's really hard to stop something like
It is.
that. Whereas we're much better off if we can educate people and have people take care when they bring boats in and out
Right.
and docks in and out from other areas, to limit those types of invasions.
Yeah, I know that some places they have monitors to check boats before they go in the water. Now, that's not within our budget, of course, but
But Ramsey County does monitor our lake several times a year. They'll have somebody out there for an 8-hour shift.
oh, they will, okay.
And I believe last year they did about three different days
times, okay.
where they were monitoring vehicles coming in and out.
Well, that
Yeah.
can't do anything but help. I think
Yes, definitely.
it's important for people to be aware of those things. Joyce, how many lakeshore owners do we have currently who are members of the association?
There are 27, well, we just had a new family move in, so probably 28 out of 37 actual homes on the
37,
lake.
okay.
There's 37 actual homes,
Right.
and then there's about 28 of the homeowners that are members of
Okay.
the Silver Lake Improvement
It
Association.
would be nice
so-
to see all.
Oh, it always
homeowners.
would be, but you know, you do
can't-
what you do, and
yeah.
And we're happy with who we do have become members every year, and also the external or the the surrounding community people to help us out too.
Right.
So we do okay.
Yeah. Well,
And then I was kind of saying too earlier is we started to reach out to the cities who have property on the lake, North St. Paul, Maplewood, and Oakdale, to see if they wouldn't mind helping contribute to that cost of treating any of the offshore invasive species. And we've been very fortunate in that North St. Paul Mayor and City Council have gone ahead and will designate every year some budget money for the purpose of treating the lake, the offshore parts, not the
Right.
shoreline, because they have that whole southern shore of it, and they, that's North St. Paul, and that's a
Right.
big focal point of our city. So we're also working with Maplewood. We don't have anything set tentatively just for now, but
Right.
and then Oakdale has also agreed to help us out a little bit here. So I'm really thankful for that.
I think it's important to say a little bit more about the offshore treatment versus the lake shore
explain,
treatment.
shoreline,
explain
The
that.
shoreline treatment is for the individual homeowners, and that's a cost both for the permit and for the cost of treatment that those individual homeowners pay. And separate from that, the Lake Association and the City of North St. Paul and Oakdale and hopefully soon Maplewood contribute to treating the offshore areas, and that's where that that focus is primarily on addressing the invasive plants, and and that's kept separate. So we're not really expecting that individuals' properties are benefiting much from that. It's the whole lake that is benefiting from the shared expense.
Sure. What do you feel right now is the current condition of Silver Lake? How would you evaluate that? Do you have an opinion about it?
Well, I'm pretty happy with what has happened this year. I saw Joyce, pretty happy about it.
Right. I've been out a lot,
And it's great to see that that the invasives have been,
kept at
knocked
bay.
down or been less impactful this year. Now, next year,
Yeah,
it could be a whole different situation. It could have been the weather conditions this winter.
That's what
That
we were
probably-
thinking, and talking to the consultants, is that because we had that blizzards, we had all that snow
Right.
cover over the lake, that when the sun was getting strong there the end of April, well, it didn't reach down to the
penetrating.
bottom when when those invasives start to really kind of think
Sure.
about growing. And so I think that held them at bay for now, for this year, but like, you said, next year could be a totally different story.
we
So-
can't take credit for that, I guess.
No,
the
we
heavy
cannot. That's
snow.
Mother Nature did it for us.
I'm not
and-
sure we want to either.
No,
sure.
but the lake's really healthy right now, and the native plants are starting to come back slow but sure. After they did that, lake-wide kill everything, but they
Right.
are coming back. I mean, we see evidence of it, and so that makes the DNR happy. That makes us happy, and I think the lake's good.
I'd like to talk about the algae conditions in the lake a little bit
Okay,
too.
sure.
As many
That's
people
always
that
a
are
concern about this time of year, because you start seeing some of those things
oh
happening.
yeah,
and
yeah, it
it's
starts
always-
turning
it's
pretty
not
green
very-
and
Not
you
very
know,
pretty, you could
yes,
say.
yes, and less desirable for swimming.
For sure, yeah.
And a lot of the algae depends on phosphorus coming into the lake, and the inputs for phosphorus are, as I understand it, primarily from lawn fertilizers and things along that line. So they're things that wash into the lake. It's fertilizer that washes into the lake. One thing for individuals that live nearby that know that their properties eventually drain into the lake, and that extends into Maplewood quite a ways to the west.
Sure.
And a lot of North St. Paul, or parts of North St. Paul. If they minimize the amount of fertilizer that they put near the edges of their property so that they don't have fertilizer washing off into the drain, into the stormwater system, that ends up going directly into the lake. And then adding phosphorus means that we get that algae bloom enhanced quite a bit. The other thing is the road construction that is being done on Lake Boulevard and 19th.
It's happening this summer.
In that area,
and
this
next
summer and next summer. Included in that is an effort to hold back some of the phosphorus and remove phosphorus before it gets to the lake. So someplace on the north side of the lake, as I understand it, there's going to be a treatment process, you know, mostly natural. I believe it'll be plants that will absorb the nutrients before they get to the lake, and that, I'm hopeful, will help keep the lake a little clearer in the summer and add to our enjoyment of the lake.
Right, and recently the bioretention pond next to the tennis courts near the beach.
Yes,
that
good
was
point.
redone, and it looks like that might be a great addition, because before it wasn't working. It was just a stagnant pond, and now I think it's done right. And, and that was the watershed district, I think. That
the watershed
that
district
provided,
there in North St. Paul participated in
That's
that
right.
one. This other one that I was just talking about is Maplewood and the watershed district in North St. Paul.
You're right.
So yeah.
Well, do you have any other? Well, I was going to mention the question about water lilies, and I know that our last meeting, why there were a number of people who expressed concern about the water lilies, and Joyce, I think you experienced that firsthand.
I sure do, yeah, in the
So-
bay I'm at. Yeah, plenty of water lilies, and certainly they're native plants, and you know, we don't want to disturb them.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
yeah, but when it gets to the point where the lilies are preventing you to get your boat out from your dock into the main part of the lake, the DNR will work with you to help clear a path for you from that.
But
so I was happy to hear that too.
They don't want wholesale destruction of the water lilies. So, and it's interesting because I've been around the lake for decades, and years ago we never
had
saw
them.
water lilies.
No, not in my bay either. No. When I moved in, there were no lilies in that bay.
And it's surrounding the beach now, and many other areas.
I imagine they just get carried in off boats as well.
Well,
Is that how they
I would
come in?
imagine, and I would imagine there's more nutrients for them to thrive.
Sure.
You know, and they are a good plant for removing a lot of those nutrients and stuff.
Well, we are about out of time, and I just want to express my thanks to you two for coming on and explaining what the Lake Association does and what your concerns are. I think it's very important. We've been talking to Rick Gelbman, the president of the Lake Association, and also Joyce Gurmscheid, who is a treasurer and membership person with the Lake Association. So we're out of time on this month's show. Join us again next month when we'll bring you more news about North St. Paul. I'm Paul Anderson, speaking for everyone at the City of North St. Paul. Thank you for watching.